Hello. Let's take a deep breath in. That beautiful ah sound. Let the breathing come back to normal. Eyes opening. I'm so happy to see you today, and I'm really excited to share with you. And unfortunately, I'm excited to share more than I feel like I should share right now. I'm really working to keep these videos very, very short. So I want to go over some books, but I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to leave that for another day. So I'm going to go over some books. This is Books on Thursday, and I'm going to go over 4 books, not necessarily like my all-time favorite books, but books that have had great meaning to me at different points in my life, and some of them, at least one of them, will always be like one of my all-time favorites. So the first book is a science fiction novel. I started off reading comic books, as a very, very young child. Spent a lot of time by myself, and I read a lot of comic books, and that shifted eventually to science fiction, which ended up going into fantasy and lots of other stuff. And this is one of the early science fiction books I read. I actually haven't read it for many years, but it had a big influence on my life, or, at least a relatively big influence. A Stranger in a Strange Land. A lot of people have heard of this book. It's a great book. There's the expression grokking that comes out of it, Grok. If you grok someone, it's like a deeper level of understanding. It's almost like a level of understanding that has to deal with depth rather than surface. This was a great book. It's about a person from another world who actually is human, but he was brought up by Martians. And he comes here and he looks at life differently. He has unbelievable powers and a sort of innate sort of mysticism. So a really, really great book to read. At least that's my memory of it. I'm going to also go over The Seat of the Soul with you, Gary Zukav. So this is a great book for people who like to have some relationship to science and spirituality. The Seat of the Soul, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's completely scientific, but it relates to physics and how physics and spirituality come together. And again, it's a really great book. It's a great way of opening ourselves up to different ways of perceiving the reality in which we live. I'd like to bring up a book that has a lot of meaning to me. This is Your Erroneous Zones by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Now, in 1976, when he published this book, I was 12 years old, and I read that book at the time. And, I used to see him on Johnny Carson and things like that. And Your Erroneous Zones was a great book for me at the time because it was really about understanding the limits of family. And just because family is family doesn't always mean that it's working for you. Sometimes it's toxic. And so it really helped me to begin to understand and develop a different relationship with those elements, Your Erroneous Zones. And I want to give you now one of my absolute favorite books, and just one of my favorite all-time people, Roomie, The Essential Roomie. And Coleman Barks is just, one of the great translators. But this book is so wonderful. And Rumi was a Sufi poet. And, you can just open up to anywhere in here. Sufism, by the way, is the mystical branch of Islam. And really a big influence in my life. And I just really, really want to highly suggest that you check out Rumi. Even Google Rumi. Google poems by Rumi. So thank you very, very much for joining me. Thank you for joining me in this 24th day of the 40-day practice. And remember, and this is kind of what I wanted to touch on, there is no end to division. There is no end to division. Division is something that can happen endlessly. That's one thing I remember. I wasn't a great student, but I remember hearing, that element, like tearing a piece of paper in half and how you can keep tearing it in half. And you can, if you have a fine enough instrument, you can always keep dividing. I would like to suggest there is no end to division. And being attracted to division, it's very, very attractive, us versus them. Even the word other, the word Satan originally meant other. So when we are demonizing the other, there is no bridge to that. And so I just really want to ask you to be aware of that. It's like riding a wild horse. If the division is out there, it eventually comes into your home, and the division in the outer world is always a relationship to division within ourselves. So anyway, thank you for your time. I shouldn't have gone off at that last bit, but you know me. Here we go. I'm going to ring the bell. Genius shines like the sun. Genius is not going to follow your bias. It's going to reveal more than you understand about yourself. I bring my hands in the prayer position, I bow to you, and I say to you, Namaste. Check out some books on Thursdays. I love you guys. Have a great day.